Hey guys, it is me, Tanya, founder of the TNG Designs Group Limited. I hope you're all keeping safe and well. Now, in today's video, we're going to be talking about the idea of what fonts best represent your brand. That part. What fonts best represent your brand? What does that even mean? Well, you're going to find out exactly what that means shortly. But before you get stuck into this video, remember to like and subscribe to my channel because, as always, I want to make sure that you guys get reminded about it. So go ahead and hit that little ding bell so you do not miss out on any videos that I always go ahead and upload, right? And make sure that you stick around to the very end of this video because, as always, I've got a super cool gift to be able to share with you. So folks, let's get stuck into it. Okay, so as I said, we're going to be talking about what fonts actually best represent your brand, because you'll be surprised, folks, as to how many people will, I shouldn't laugh, however, it's crazy. How many people, even in today's day and age, right, still unfortunately get it a little bit wrong, not a little bit, a lot wrong, because they do things that, yeah, it just does not resonate with what their brand is about at all. This is why you also need to make sure, and it's why I also stress it, why you need to make sure that you know what your brand power of 3 is. And here's why. As always, with your brand power of 3, right, especially, you'll get to understand that, do you know what? Yeah, I want to make sure that I stand out amongst that competition. And I want to make sure that I reach those people that I actually want to work with. And I want to do that in the best possible way by understanding what my values, my vision, and my purpose is, right? And I'm going to touch base, especially on that first part that I started and talking to you guys about, the values. If you know me, and if you've ever heard me in training, if you've ever heard me speak on webinars, live on stage, whatever it may be, right? You will know that I will always tell you to make sure that you lead with your values. And here's the reason why. When you start leading with your values, you get to understand how or even what naturally sits well with you. You get to understand how to make those better connections. You get to understand what colors to actually start picking. And it's actually going to help you to understand what fonts to pick as well for your business, for your brand. Whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're a business owner, however you want to identify yourself as, whether you're just working on your personal brand as well, it's still super important to be able to understand what fonts will help you to be best represented. Again, going back to the idea of values, I want you to pick 3 to 5 different values, right? That's 3 to 5 different values. When you start tapping into what they are for yourself, especially the ones that really, really hit home to you, right? The ones that really, really touch you in the heart. Make sure you tap into each and every one of those, because you get to understand, as I said before, not only your colors, not only what makes things sit nicely with you or resonates with you on a level, right? Especially when it comes to the direction as to what you want to, where you actually want to go with your brand. It will help you to understand whether or not you use a serif font, whether or not you use handwritten fonts, whether or not you use slab serifs. And I'm going to show a little image shortly, right, to be able to understand what each and every one of those are. And I'll actually give you a little description about them in 1 minute. However, when it comes to your values, you're going to naturally start seeing things that will literally hit home to you. You're going to see a font that'll be like, oh, yes, that's it, because it resonates with one of your top 3 to 5 values. And I'm going to say to you to use top 3 to 5, because otherwise, if you go beyond that, you're going to start confusing yourself. And if you go under that, it's not going to be enough to be able to give yourself a really good generalized idea. So really think about that. Use your top 3 to 5 because it's a nice sweet spot area, right? So when you use, for example, let's use the idea of freedom as your value. And I keep coming up with that example a lot. So I've got to make sure that it's in one of my top 5, I think, because I keep resonating with it a lot. But I know freedom is resonates with a lot of people, right? Especially when it comes to their values. But what you now got to think about is, when it does come to the idea of freedom, what about freedom is it? Is it freedom of having time to do the things that you love doing? Is it freedom of just being in your own space, using your own time without having to wake up with an alarm clock? Is it the freedom of just being out in such an open space that just allows you the peace that you need to be able to keep it moving? Well, funnily enough, folks, each and every one of those freedoms can have a different font to resonate with and to actually be showcased with. And again, I'm going to show you a quick little example right now. You'll be able to see that, you know what? When you use the idea of freedom, freedom can actually use a font that is super thin and super spacious in between each of the lettering, because it's giving that peace, it's giving that sense of tranquility, right? But if you use a font that has a handwritten font, that's another sense of freedom right here. When you have that handwritten font, that's another sense of freedom, because guess what? It's the freedom of being you. It's the freedom of you being able to express yourself in a way that actually resonates with not only yourself, but equally the audience that you actually want to work with. So you see the two differences. They both mean freedom, however, they resonate in different kind of ways. So really tap into the idea of what does freedom actually mean to you? What does your top 3 to 5 values actually mean to you? So don't just stop it at the word love, for example. What does love mean to you? Do you give love or do you receive love? There's differences. What does peace mean to you? Is it a peaceful mind or is it a peaceful space? You've literally got to do that, folks, because when you understand that, then you know what kind of font that actually resonates nicely with you. Now, going back to the idea of what each and every one of those fonts are that I previously spoke about. Number 1, you've got the serif font. Now, serif means the idea of, do you know what? You're going to have these little extra flicks at the end of your lettering. So check that out right now. And not only will you have those extra flicks, think about fonts like Times New Roman, or think about fonts like, I think it's Georgia as well, you know? All those type of fonts, they have the little extra flicks at the ends of the letters. That's a serif font. Sans serif gets rid of all those flicks. It's literally straight cut. The most basic one to think about, there's 2 actually. There's Helvetica and there's also Arial as well. That's the most commonly known one, right? There's so many, but that gives you an idea at least about what a sans serif font is, right? Slab serif now. Now, slab serif. Imagine the serif font with the extra little decorative flicks, but the slab is more chunkier endings. So check out this example right there. So you get to see exactly what a chunky slab serif could look like. Now that would be probably a good idea to use if your brand or if your values was the idea about being robust, or is the idea of being bold, is the idea of being show strength. Maybe that's a font that you could actually use. Think about that. Another font to really home in on, I sort of touched base on it before, is literally the handwritten font. There's different hand styles, right? So you can have something that's super old school and decorative, sometimes to the point of illegibility. So be careful of that. Be super mindful of it. It's cool to begin with, but think about the journey of this font. Where do you see it? Is it just going to be a title always, or is it going to be used as something else? Think about that. And speaking of which, I always like to use at least 2 different fonts. One I always use as like a talking kind of font, which again sort of like allows my voice to come out a little bit more, but I would only use them for like really key subjects or subheadings, in fact, or I would use it as a really cool title, something like that. And then the main body font, I would keep it to a simple serif font, and sometimes even sans serif especially always works as well. So I will always use between the 2, depending on what kind of brand I'm working on and depending on what kind of values I know that that brand particularly resonates with. So think about that, folks. Have 2 in your back pocket at least, okay? I highly resonate that you should really think about that. At least 2 of them. One to have a conversation with the audience, another one to actually give the facts and the figures and the main body information so that they can actually read it as it should be read, right? Still using your tone of voice, more importantly, that part. Now, this last and final thing that I want to make sure that you do, and this is super key, and I need you to make sure that you do not do this, because if you do this and if you fall into trap after hearing what it is, please stop and go back and resonate with your 3 to 5 values, because they're going to be super helpful to you. Okay. So this last and final thing is, please don't pick a font because you think it's pretty. Please don't pick a font because you think, do you know what? Yeah, that'll do. No, folks, please come to it with a better attitude, because if you want to make sure that your brand gets taken seriously, if you want to make sure that your brand stands above your competition, these are all the things that they're already thinking of, right? So now it's time for you to start thinking about them. Now it's time for you to make sure that you get yourself out of that rut of thinking like it's, oh, that will do. Get out of that attitude, because it's not going to serve you at all. And you need to be able to make sure that your brand elevates and is taken seriously, so that you can actually start positioning yourself as that expert that you know you are. So now others need to know it and respect it as well. So folks, there we have it. Now you really get to understand what fonts best represent your brand, right? Think about that. And anyway, folks, I'm going to leave it there. Please go ahead and share this video with other like-minded people. And as always, remember to like and subscribe to my channel and hit that little ding bell so you do not miss out on any videos that I go ahead and upload. So folks, here it is, my gift from me to you. This is my 6 principles to understand that how you can actually take your brand from being unnoticed to getting seen and visible in the spaces that you want to be seen and visible, but equally get to stand out above that competition, make those better connections, and actually go ahead and start reaching out to an audience that actually resonates with who you are as a brand, so that they can sit comfortably with you, and equally you sit comfortably with them, and they know that you're the expert to go to, right? These 6 principles will help you to understand how to be able to do that. So go ahead and download my guide that's attached to the link in the description box below. And folks, I will see you on the inside.